I'm Sebastian St. James. In a previous video, Cartheni asked, what if I haven't lodged my tax claim in a few years? Do you suggest a tax agent? It was too complicated in the past. If you've failed to lodge your tax return in the past, do you go straight to hell? Or do you go straight to jail without passing go and collecting $200? Well, according to the ATO, if you still need to lodge a tax return for a prior year, it's important to get up to date as soon as possible to reduce the risks of penalties and interests. Penalties and interests? What's the ATO talking about? Well, if you lodge late, then there are two factors that you need to factor in, and they are the factor of penalties, which is a set fee, it's like a speeding fine, that you need to pay, and interest, which means for tax which you should have paid in previous years, they will actually add an interest rate onto it, and therefore, the longer you leave it, the greater the interest rate will be, and that's what you've got to factor in. So we've discovered that doing your tax returns is a bit like weeding the garden. The longer you leave it, the worse it is. Right, so I've got a tax return from a previous year that I have to lodge. What are my options? Well, there are three. You can lodge your tax return through myTax, which you do through the MyGov website. It's fairly straightforward. You can use a registered tax agent, or you can lodge a paper tax return. And they're your options. MyTax I've used before. It's very convenient, but how far back in time can I use myTax? Like if it's a tax return I haven't done from 5 years ago, can I still use myTax? Here is a short answer. So from 2016, yes, you can use myTax without any problems. And here's the long answer. So you can also use myTax from 2014 and 15, but there are certain eligibility requirements. What are they? If you're a normal wage earner, maybe you have a few shares, maybe you have some bank interest, things like that, then yes, you should be able to use myTax. If it's anything more complicated than that, then no, you can't for 2014 and 2015. From 2016 onwards, yes, you can. Okay, but I forgot to lodge my tax return and I wasn't earning anything. Perhaps I was a stay-at-home mother, for example, and I didn't do a job. Is that a problem? Actually, it's not. Here is how it works. If you don't need to lodge a tax return, then you still need to let the government know that you do not need to lodge a tax return. And how do you do that? You simply lodge a non-lodgement advice, which you can do through MyGov. But you still have to tell them. The exception is, say, if you're a pensioner, and then you can lodge a I don't need to lodge ever again claim. But if you're a normal worker and you're expecting to go back to work at some stage, then yes, each year you don't need to lodge a tax return. Let the ATO know that you're not going to do that and that it's okay. So under what circumstances don't I need to lodge a tax return? Well, here they are. If you earn less than $18,200, that's a tax-free threshold, or if tax has been withheld from your income, for example, dividends. If they are franked dividends and therefore there has been some tax paid on them, then yes, you need to lodge a tax return to get the tax money back. Let's say that I have a tax return from 2012. I'm definitely not eligible to use myTax. What do I do then? Well, you use paper, yes? Good old-fashioned paper like your grandmother used to use. How to lodge a paper tax return? Well, basically you download it and go ahead and fill it in. So I get this year's tax return and I just fill it out for a previous year's? No, that's not what you do. You need to fill in the tax return for the specific tax year. So for example, this year, which will be from June 2021 through to June 2022, so that's the tax return you'd be filling in now, would be the 2022 tax return. But hang on, I know you only have to keep your tax records for, say, 5, 6, 7 years. Isn't that true? Therefore, there should be a statute of limitations. If I haven't done my tax return after that period of time, I won't have to do it, right? No. You need to keep tax records for 5 years, in most cases, from the date you lodge your tax return. So if you haven't lodged it, then you need to keep your tax record. There's no get out of jail free card just by being late. People who are tardy and don't return their tax returns are not rewarded. So you shouldn't be either. Can you summarize our findings? Well, yes, I can. You can use myTax from 2016 or 14, depending, and you can use paper returns from 1984. If you haven't done your tax return prior to 1984, then you've got bigger problems. You probably already escaped to a desert island on your yacht. I will be bringing out a series of tax return videos shortly, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. Are there any penalties that I have to factor in if I lodge my tax return late? The answer is no, nothing at all. Oh yes, there are. Failure to lodge an on-time penalty. The FTL, as it's known, is a system of penalties that you have to pay if you're late. Oh, okay. So how do I calculate this FTL, failure to lodge? It's simple. First of all, decide what sort of entity you are. We'll assume here that you're a small entity, in other words, a normal person. Then you get one penalty for each maximum of 28 days. So if you're a year late or something like that, it's just 5 penalties maximum straight away. All right, so last year's tax return, I'm probably at 5 penalties. And how much is a penalty again? Well, after 2020, the penalty is $222 and so on, right down there to 110. How do you know which penalty year you should be using in? When the infringement occurred. So if it was 2017, you didn't lodge it, then you'd be using $180, for example. Can you do the math? Yes, I can do the math. So if your tax return was due from 2020, maximum number of units is 5 and the unit cost is $222, therefore the penalty will be $1,110. If, on the other hand, it's your 2017 tax return you haven't done, it's still 5 units of penalty and they're $180 per unit, therefore it is $900. So it's actually getting cheaper as you go back in time. Oh, that's the way it works. If you're rich, if you're earning between $1 million and $20 million, then you are considered to be a medium entity, in which case, for medium entities, the penalty is multiplied by 2. Let's do the math on that. 2017, 5 units of penalty, the same as what we saw before, but this time we're going to multiply by 2, which is $1,800 instead of $900. Good. Then I lodge my tax return late, I pay my $1,100 and all is forgiven. Is that correct? Yes, it is correct. No, there is interest that you have to pay. That's just the penalty part. Interest charges are there to compensate the community for the impact of your late payments. If you lodge your tax late, according to the ATO, you are robbing the community from their money and you deserve to be punished for that. And we do that, well, we do that through fees, which we've already discussed, $1,100, and we do that through interest payments. So let's get on to that. 2 types of interest you may need to pay is a general interest, which is for late lodgements, and the shortfall in case you make an amendment to a previous tax return. How much interest am I exposed to pay? Let's say 1-2%? No, it's a lot higher. If, for example, in 2022, you'd failed to lodge a tax return, then you'd be paying 7% interest, 7.04, etc., on every dollar that you have not paid for every year that you've waited. If you're planning not to do this year's tax return, I can tell you the interest rate has jumped up to 8%. There we go. So you get onto it or else you'll be paying 8% every single year. Can you summarize that for me? Yes, the maximum penalty is $1,100. The interest rate is around about 7% per year on the tax that you owe. Right, this is really complicated. So I've got this penalty and I've got this interest, which I can't possibly calculate myself. So I need to go to a tax agent, right? No, the ATO will actually do all the math for you. That's what their job is. And so you return your tax return as per usual and let the ATO do the math. What could be simpler than that? Other than you have to pay it, of course. So, late tax return lodgements, we've discovered the longer you wait, the more it costs you in interest. So do it early. Fill in overdue tax returns as easily as you would do this year's, and the ATO does the math for you on the penalties. All right, it's becoming clear. Now, should I be using a tax agent to lodge late tax returns? Well, for most people, the answer is probably not, but you have to make your own decision. However, if your tax is particularly complicated, then yes, you may need to see an accountant. Kathyeni said, do you suggest a tax agent? It was too complicated in the past. Too complicated in the past? What does that mean? Let's tease out a few potential options. Tax is hard, man. There's no way I could possibly figure out how to do myTax. Well, myTax is designed for the average person to make tax returns fairly easy for you. So if you're an average person, you should be able to use myTax. Learning how to do your tax return is a bit like you learning to use a mobile phone or a computer for the first time. Possibly overwhelming, except if you learned it as a kid. But once you know it, and you've got that skill, and you're using it time and time again, then it's really not too bad. Okay, so that should be the expectation that you set yourself. It is a bit of a learning curve, but once you know the basics, then you've got it. It's like riding a bike. And you'll be doing tax returns for the rest of your working life, so you may as well learn now, rather than putting it off for 5-6 years because it won't go away. I have too many receipts, I can't possibly deal with this. Well, that's what a spreadsheet is for. Don't waste the tax agent's time if you can add up your receipts yourself. I own shares, so therefore my situation is far too complicated. Is that right? Well, that's what a spreadsheet is for. Again, you need to do some tracking. You need to collect your buy and your sell price and your dates. And there's only a few things that you need to learn, but you need to learn them. But once you know them, no, doing your own shares is very straightforward. But I don't know what I can claim. It's way over my head. Do I need a tax agent then? Well, you can visit the ATO's website. They'll tell you what you can claim, or you can watch my videos. I'll hopefully go through all of that over time. Or you can use a tax agent for 1 year, say. Find out what they claim for you, and if your situation is basically the same next year, you can claim the same things, adjust the dollar amounts according to any changes, and basically use their knowledge to do your tax return forever after, as long as the law doesn't change, as long as your tax situation is basically the same year after year. And for most of you who are working, it probably is. What if I run, say, a small business? Well, if it's a hobby level business, then your sole trader business is done on your personal tax return. Not all sole traders are hobby businesses though. If it's a complicated business, then probably get yourself an accountant. Personally, if I had a complicated situation enough where I was running a business, I would not go to a tax agent, I would go to a full-on accountant. In my opinion, an accountant is there for complicated matters where you may need the extra help genuinely. A tax agent often is there for people who are a little bit too lazy to do themselves or who've never learned, in which case maybe you should learn. The answer to the question is, if you're capable of filling in a tax return normally, there is nothing about filling in a late tax return from a previous year that would trigger the need of using a tax agent, because it's basically the same thing. You fill in the tax return for the appropriate year. When you forgot to fill it in, you'll get a penalty, you pay the penalty, and other than that, it's fairly straightforward. So, should I lodge this year's tax return right now? No, you probably shouldn't. Click here to find out why.